What is going on, everybody? Nazarachi coming back at you again with another 5-9 collaborative video. This time we shall be discussing, reviewing, and reacting in post to our take on the second episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The episode is titled The Star-Spangled Man. So we have a few things to discuss here. The show itself, just kind of very quickly summarizing it, compared again to the WandaVision show, is much more linear. It does roll out pretty much just like an action movie, which is honestly exactly what the producers and developers told us to expect. So again, very exciting experience, but just not a lot of the mind-bending stuff going on. With that in mind, I am joined today by Azdeek. Go ahead and say hello to everybody in the audience.
Yeah, what's going on, guys?
And we also have Little Bobby coming back again as well. Feel free to say hello.
Hey, how you guys doing today?
And we are also joined by Waffles, who is also a returning comic book aficionado. So feel free to say hello, Waffles.
I don't know about all that, but hello. I do enjoy these shows on occasion, but which is most of the time.
At least when the comic books transition over into the MCU, anyways. Like, you know, I myself am not the hugest like comic book collector. I have quite a few of the graphic novels, like the collections of certain, you know, hype moments throughout Marvel history, but I'm actually not super well versed on all the backstory with the Falcon and the US Agent or Super Patriot and Zemo and all this stuff. So there's a lot of Easter eggs that were brought to my attention in this episode that I'm sure some of the guys here will feel free to mention. I believe the opening scenes kind of start us and segue into just some of the Easter eggs just rolling out almost immediately. Like the episode basically gives us a little bit of backstory into the man that is replacing, or quote unquote being his own version, the best that he can be, of Captain America, is John Walker. You know, the episode 1 left us on a cliffhanger where we knew relatively nothing about him. We just saw his face. There was the hashtag #NotMyCap that was trending on Twitter over the next couple days following that. But this one kind of goes to catch us up a little bit. And why don't, actually, Waffles, let's start with you this time, because you're the one who noticed the song, right? Give us a little bit of bit of your take on this opening sequence, how they kind of catch up John Walker here versus they just kind of the shock reveal we had last week, and you know, just your thoughts, the music, the Easter eggs, everything. What was your thoughts on this opening sequence?
Sure, I think I was honestly a little bit surprised and caught off guard because having ended the episode last time with John Walker kind of looking so smug and like really looking at his backstory and seeing like, okay, he's kind of not the best dude. I was expecting to just hate him, but this first episode you see that this first scene you see him being kind of genuine, and I was just like, wow, okay, maybe he's not the worst guy. Maybe there's going to be like some opportunity for growth there. Maybe it'll be an interesting character to see, and I really like that, because I think that that was subverting my expectations in a way that was well done. And the thing about the song that I wanted to mention is, first, it plays, it's banging, it's fantastic, but as it goes on, you can hear a couple moments where you hear the melody for Star-Spangled Man with a Plan in the back. It's not like at the forefront of the song, but as it's going through, you can kind of hear it. I'm like, wait a minute, did they remix the old like 1940s Captain America Man with a Plan song? And yeah, I think they did. So it was just fantastic. That made me really excited, just as like I don't know, having seen that movie a couple different times, and just I really liked the song before, and hearing it here, just it feels like they're paying attention to the details, and so I really like that. And I was surprised to see John Walker being a decent person.
Yeah, Little Bobby, what are your thoughts? As you can see, like the scenes themselves play out, it seems like a wife or girlfriend of his comes into his old high school locker room, and then following that he has another military, basically a brother in arms, that comes in to kind of help pep talk him too. Like, what are your thoughts on this opening setup here? What can we deduce about the man John Walker, or the aka the new Cap, going from this kind of opening sequence here? Because I think it says quite a bit about his character, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing I think that we get from all of this, or that we're supposed to get from all this, is like, hey, this is a guy who's really trying to be his best, like Steve Rogers, and it's supposed to make us kind of be more empathetic to this new face of Captain America. That, you know, like you said, we saw a hashtag not my cap. They want us to go, hey, you know what, this guy's all right, look at him, he's a normal guy, he's just trying to be the best he can be. You know, they talk about how he's nervous and all that stuff, and they want you to really start to see that other human side of him behind the shield and the mask. So they introduce you to like the people who support him and all that, and let you see that he's really trying his best to make everything make everything as smooth as it can be with him becoming Captain America. I think that was the whole point of this scene with his girlfriend or wife, like you said, and his buddy coming in to kind of talk him up and, you know, kind of juice him and go, hey, you know what, this is different than what you're used to, but you got this, man. He's like, okay, I know I can do it. It's something different, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do my best.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. Like, you can tell they're setting the tone where the character, you know, canonically knows that he has some really huge shoes to fill. But Azdeek, what do you think we can kind of gather about his personality, like as a person? Like, do you know, it seems like there's a little exchange between him and his military friend, who has some backstory we'll get to later as to who he is. But, you know, what do you anticipate from this character just in terms of a personality? How, just at a glance, like, similar to Steve Rogers would you say he is? Like, you know, what are your thoughts going on with just this character that the government selected to be the new Cap, and his overall attitude, I guess you could say, just from this opening scene, of course?
Well, I think you guys pretty much covered a majority of it, but I think a highlighted word for me right there is government. Like, when they go and he's like on the Good Morning America show and whatever, he's like kind of like talking himself down a little bit, like he's being humble, right, which is like a good trait, and they definitely want us to like sympathize with him and stuff like that, and be like, yeah, like, look at this, he's a decent guy. But his, like, the host of the show goes and says, like, well, you need to stop being humble, like, you're a highly decorated soldier. And that's like what really stood out to me, because I feel like the government's like, this guy is someone that's going to follow orders, this guy is going to listen to us, he's going to do what we say. And I feel like that's something to like keep note of. Yeah,
I believe that speech, either at the end of that or on another little interview that Falcon sees on TV, he's talking and he's saying stuff like, you know, even though I never knew Steve Rogers, he seemed like the kind of guy that would never want to let people down. And, you know, it feels like almost like a brother to me, you know, that I never met type situation. You know, they distinctly had that conversation, and it sets up an interesting dynamic moving forward between these two characters and the two other main characters of the show, who we cut back to next. But I'd just like to point out for the audience that, you know, me personally, I don't dig into too much of the backstories, the actors and all that involved, but this guy who is playing U.S. Agent, or, you know, John Walker, was actually like the main character in the Overlord movie, and that's where I recognized him from, where, you know, he actually did a pretty good job in that. I actually really enjoyed that movie. So I actually, now that I see him without the mask, I have a little bit more frame of reference of the, you know, the context of him jumping into the MCU. Personally, I'm much more open-minded about it now. But yeah, you definitely see them kind of show everything off, and then it cuts directly to the title card, and then that interview that Azdeek just mentioned right there with the reporter, kind of giving off all of the highlight parts of his career so far. But it doesn't seem that he really has any type of superhuman abilities yet, so they don't really cover that too much in this episode. We're going to get to that towards the end. Next up, it basically just cuts back to Bucky here, sitting watching, you know, that interview that we just aforementioned right there, while then cutting immediately to the Falcon, who's about to go on a mission, and you see that Bucky is waiting for the Falcon there. Do you guys have any, starting with Waffles again, do you have any thoughts about this little pre-mission, this kind of setup of the dynamic between, you know, Bucky and Sam? You know, like, what are your overall thoughts on their vibe and how, Bucky just kind of joins right in for the mission, like, they've been best friends forever or something like that. Like, what are your opinions on this next sequence back to the main characters here?
I felt like it was a little bit abrupt, but I think that it was just that one scene, because later on in the episode it feels great. But I think the first scene, maybe it's because it was in the trailer, but it felt like the pacing was off, like it was too fast. Like they weren't giving themselves time to actually respond like normal human beings. It was just like, oh, Bucky, he's here? Okay, I guess I'm on the mission. All right, cool. Let's go. And I was just like, this is weird. I feel like maybe having thrown like a scene in there of, oh, he has a reminder on his phone that he has to go to the court-appointed therapy session that he ends up missing because of this. It would be nice to see just a small scene like that to show, okay, he's planning to go intercept Falcon, and then they're gonna go on the mission there. But it felt like he's here, okay, we're just jumping into it, which is not a thing that I welcome this, but like, I don't know, it felt a little bit off just when that one scene.
Yeah, I feel like some of that also comes from potentially some of the tension between the characters. Like I myself, I don't know exactly what the time frame is since they'd seen each other last, although I would assume it's maybe around Tony Stark's funeral, maybe shortly after. But then this is, 8 months after that, I do believe. But Little Bobby, what are your thoughts on them coming back together, the dynamic, the possible tension between them, and I guess, just the introduction of the core duo of the show here? Like, what are your thoughts on them finally coming together? Because they spent the majority of the first episode, well, they spent the entirety of the first episode apart, so, like, are you confident in the way that the stage has been set here, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do kind of agree with Waffles. It felt a little weird that it just jumped to both of them being together without any any kind of fanfare or anything like that, right? There was nothing that brought them together or sees them like meeting for the first time and it being awkward. They're just kind of both there, and they hit the ground running with the kind of combative rapport, right? With them kind of getting at each other about the shield and what Steve would want and all that kind of stuff. I did like the chemistry between them because it immediately started adding little bits of comedy, which we really have come to expect from the MCU, right? That there's going to be that counterplay between some laughs and the serious stuff that happens in the movies up to this point. And I think they really brought that. But I will say, yeah, I agree with you, Waffles, that it kind of felt like a little rushed having them just both be there and like, hey, we're on a mission now. It was a little strange, but I felt like once you shake that off, it actually felt pretty good because it did feel more traditional MCU with like the interaction between two heroes. Almost anytime we see the interaction between two heroes initially, it's kind of funny, it's kind of got some goofy moments and some lightheartedness to smooth out like what might be otherwise just be awkward stuff.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. They do blend the humor in pretty well. And I actually also agree with y'all that perhaps their initial debut in the show together as kind of like a team, if you will, was kind of abrupt. But we do know that the show is going to be 6 episodes long, which means we're already a third of the way done with the show. It's just basically like a extended Lord of the Rings cut movie that's chopped up into 6 episodes for TV, which again, I'm all for that if it means we have a more steady stream of content. Now, Azdeek, and I'm having difficulty getting the character caught in frame, but to add to that, you also had a little bit of Easter egg background knowledge of this other character that's been helping Falcon out. With a Hispanic character. His name escapes me right now. Was it Blake something?
Joaquin Torres.
Joaquin Torres. Okay, yeah. So give us not only your quick take on the meetup of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier themselves, or I guess Bucky Barnes now, but give us a little bit of this Easter egg going on here, because this I think is one of the second Easter eggs that we noticed watching through the episode, right?
Yeah, so honestly, I honestly did not catch this in the first episode. It kind of just like slipped my mind, but like going back to it and like, you know, just catching up with everything, his name stood out to me finally, and I was just like, why is that? Because this guy, within the comic book, he actually becomes the sidekick to Sam Wilson once he does take on the Captain America title. Joaquin Torres actually becomes Falcon for him, and they kind of like have their little duo and stuff like that. You know, I have a little bit of bias towards him. He's from Arizona, and so I'm also from Arizona. So I love to see that he's getting some representation. I just am struggling to like kind of think of how they're going to fit this guy, like if they're actually going to build him up to be the next Falcon or not.
Yeah, it's like that's one of the great things about what the MCU has done here. Like they take the comics and they re-stitch them together in a way that the fans will see all the Easter eggs. They will be able to, at least in my experience, they'll be able to level with the show and kind of feel like, you know, the respects have been paid, but they also go off on enough of a tangent where new things happen. It's not a predictable experience, basically. It's not like, oh, I read this, so I know what's about to happen, right? They definitely mix it up a little bit. And speaking of mixing it up, the next sequence just basically shows both the Falcon and Bucky depart the plane. Of course, Falcon flies out, and Bucky just kind of jumps out with no parachute, kind of paralleling what, again, Cap, it's another kind of callback to him, because there was a sequence, and I forget which Avengers movie, or which, was it Winter Soldier? Okay, where, yeah, Cap just jumps out, no parachute, and the soldier who's in the plane is very impressed with that maneuver. So a little bit of a callback to that, and a little kind of Easter egg. Of course, Bucky hits the ground a little hard, sets up a little bit of the comedic background behind Falcon and Sam, Sam and Bucky, where he really hates the little drone that Sam has. He kind of, I guess Sam always teases him with it, but it seems they kind of go into a derelict warehouse. It's definitely like burnt out, destroyed. Seems like no one's around. And seems like they're chasing the terrorist organization that we got a little bit of eyes on from the first episode coming back around. Now, I don't know, Azdeek, if you want to start this one, do you have any more advanced knowledge since the first episode about this terrorist organization? Seems like they're relatively small. Like, what are your thoughts on this next scene where they're in this warehouse kind of being, good copy, bad copy, or good detective, bad detective, if you will? Like, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the introduction of more of the motivations of these individual terrorists, and then Sam and Bucky chasing them down here?
Well, my first thoughts are I really like because they're starting to build more of the dynamic, right? It started off a little bit rough. They kind of just threw you into it, but you know, they're definitely like building on it and stuff like that. They don't seem too reluctant to work with each other. Like, yeah, like Bucky just flew out out of the airplane and he just hit the ground, and then he's just like, all right, just move forward, you know, meet me up right here. Like, and there's kind of just like poking. Well, it's more Falcon poking fun at Bucky for a little bit there, but I can definitely see where there's just already starting to build the dynamic there, and I really like it a lot. I do like the fact that they're kind of just, you have Bucky who kind of just like listen, like, I got this bionic arm, like I got this from Wakanda, like let me just go in there, and you know, and then you got Falcon continuing to go ahead and just like tease them. They're like, oh, like you from like you straight out of Wakanda now, you think you're the White Panther and stuff like that. And so I feel like all that stuff is very like interesting to watch, very fun to watch. I really like the dynamic that they're building up.
I agree with you. Like, they have just the right amount of comedy where it doesn't really feel like they're trying too hard, but at the same time, it does a great job breaking up moments that would kind of be awkwardly tense without any dialogue, or with, you know, some weird dialogue. So I feel like the moments of levity in pretty much all the MCU, like, they are known for it. Like, it's kind of come to be expected now, which makes it maybe not as funny, but at the same time, it's very well crafted into the script, the plot, the lore. You know, they do a good job, especially like Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok. That was a masterpiece right there. But
Definitely agree.
moving forward, Bobby, we see the terrorists loading up some trucks. We don't really know what with. We can only assume they're stolen supplies. We see Falcon and Winter Soldier chase after them, and a whole action set piece here takes place. What are your thoughts on not only, the actual things that happen? So definitely run us through a quick summarization of, the events with the fight between the faction and Falcon and Bucky, and also, like, what are your thoughts on just like the CGI? You think it's consistent, the quality of the product? Just, what are your thoughts on the whole package here in this next big action set piece on top of the trucks?
I actually really thought it was cool, right? So first, the trucks leave. Bucky just sprints out after him in traditional super soldier fashion and just jumps casually onto the back of the first truck, opens it up, and finds one of the flag smashers in the back. They think it's a hostage, right, at first. But then she just knocks him out of the truck, very casually, as super soldiers do. He then kind of climbs onto the second truck, and a fight breaks out. Sam comes in to help him. I thought it was all very cool, considering with this, there was a lot of CGI, right, with Sam, and then was Red Wing and the Shield as John Walker, U.S. agent / not my Cap, shows up. There's a lot of stuff going on. I actually thought the CGI was pretty well done. The main reason being that, like a lot of good CGI use, it was all fairly quick shots, right? So you don't have too much time to focus on it as much as you're focusing on all the action. But I thought it was a cool little sequence, and it did feel almost like, a Captain America movie, right? Where there's this intense battle really quick between the good guys and bad guys. And in traditional Marvel fashion, it's early on, so the good guys are going to get shrugged off and have to catch up to the bad guys later. That's what happens. But I thought there were some really cool little bits. You're kind of going through where Bucky uses his vibranium arm to kind of catch himself, like dragging down the side of the truck and kind of ripping it open as he does. The super soldier's trying to kick him off. He's using it to drag along the ground, doing the sparks. John Walker throws the shield under his buddy, who gets kicked off. Again, all real quick little sequences that show that they're actually investing the time to make these visual effects and fight sequences look pretty good in these new shows that we're having. Even though, in WandaVision, we didn't really get a fight sequence till the end. I thought they still looked pretty good, especially the big CGI things that happen at the end. And this, it's kind of the same thing. It's really fast paced. It gets your adrenaline going, and because you don't have time to focus on it, it all seems really seamless, and it works together really well. But the main thing I took away that you actually have a freeze frame on is one of John Walker's first instincts was to use a gun. When we're talking about Cap, which Steve wouldn't have done in this situation at all. There's not a chance. And that's once again showing us one of those big differences between John Walker and Steve Rogers, right?
Yeah, I think he just blasts the dude right in the neck, but he does
Yeah.
does exhibit some pretty good skill with the shield. I think we get a little flashback of him training with it for, I don't know, less than 10 seconds, but I wasn't expecting him to come in and be immediately using the shield quite as effectively as he was. But you can also tell that, whereas Cap just much more relied on his own body and the shield, this guy, like you said, is not afraid to whip out the gat and throw some lead.
Cap with the gat.
Yeah, so we don't know how.
Especially holding it sideways, that's how you know he means
Yeah, he's
business.
like shooting around the one person to shoot somebody else. I don't know. it definitely, like you said, illustrates a huge fundamental difference between Cap, who I don't think has really used a gun since World War II, and even in World War II, I don't really think he ever used a gun to actually like kill anybody. He just used them as a tool, you know, to blast the gate down or, you know, whatever he needs to do. So yeah, I expect there to be significantly increasing differences between new Cap and old Cap here to justify Falcon eventually taking over, because I mean, we ultimately know just based off promo art and stuff that that's kind of the growth of the arc that Sam Wilson's going through here. What are your thoughts, Waffles, on the whole truck chase scene? The fact that I guess not only U.S. agent, but also his sidekick now is more established, but Battlestar, I believe, is what his name was, coming off the initial playthrough. What are your thoughts on just, yeah, again, this whole sequence and how, I guess, this early on, they're trying to get Cap and Battlestar to kind of almost team up with Bucky and Sam, like, you know, and what kind of emotional, I don't know, there would be so many like borders or boundaries in my head that would prevent them from working together and stuff. Yeah, like, what's your just take on him just immediately showing up to help and trying to, you know, establish a team and say stuff like he's not trying to replace, you know, he's not trying to replace Cap, he's just trying to be the best Cap he can be. Like, what are your thoughts on all that, Waffles?
Sure. So I think with the whole truck fight and him coming to help, I do think that was a very genuine attempt to try to help, but I feel like that scene showcased really well not only the kind of discombobulation between Falcon and Winter Soldier right now, because they're very out of sync, but also like the whole mess with US Agent and his partnered Battlestar, how maybe them not having Cap's powers and even still being able to fight with the shield and stuff is great, but they're facing super soldiers with Cap's powers, like, and they're getting their butt whooped. So I think that this scene does a lot for the overall plot. I think that it shows that the weaknesses that they need to overcome right now, obviously the synchronization between Falcon and Winter Soldier, and also maybe setting the seeds for some possible insecurities for Battlestar and US Agent or Captain America right now. So I don't know, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think it does a good job of that. And then I think the conversation on the way back was where he kind of mentions things like, oh, you know, I'm trying to do my best, and like I looked up to Steve, I really wanted to do this, and I feel like that was a really awkward conversation, but it was a good conversation for them to have. And I think that it was funny for me, first of all, especially the grenade comment where he says something like, oh, I'm not trying to be Cappy's, or I earned the shield. I think that's what he said. I earned the shield. And then Bucky's like, did you jump on a grenade? And he's like, yeah, like 3 times. And it's like, oh, okay. So I'm like, that was pretty funny. Overall, I think it was a good scene, and I think it does a lot for the plot.
Yeah, like you said, it definitely was pretty awkward when they were walking back, and then they ended up taking the ride with John Walker and Battlestar here. They ended up having a nice little conversation, kind of setting everyone's motivations in place so that at least all of them know what the other characters are about at a face value, right? So they're all kind of roughly on the same page here now. Whether or not they're going to cooperate a whole lot, it doesn't seem likely, but you never know. They may warm up to each other a little bit here. So after this whole sequence where they get a ride back, you know, it kind of ends on a stalemate between, you know, all 4 guys here, where they're just not too happy, or they're very reluctant to want to team up. It basically cuts to the refugees themselves, right? Because these guys are, like Waffles had mentioned, they are super soldiers. At this point, us in the audience, we don't really know where they got their powers, but we do know they're being tracked, and not only by the good guys, but Azdeek, you had brought up the background knowledge here, some of the more Easter eggy stuff going on that... what is it, like the power broker is chasing them? So give us a background not only of who the power broker is, who they're running from, but, you know, how did they maybe end up with their super soldier serum? Like, where do you see the show potentially going, just based off of your kind of background investigation on these entities that have been verbally mentioned in these scenes here.
Okay, so basically, what Power Broker is, it's a corporation, and it's run by this guy. His name is Curtis Jackson, and he wants to like monopolize like superpowers, like the super soldier serum. Like you guys were talking about, like what do you guys think was in the crates and stuff like that in the truck? And I think they actually mentioned, someone mentions that it looks like it's medicine, and so it kind of had me thinking, like, what if this is like a component of the super soldier serum that needs, like, they're maybe stealing from Power Broker. But essentially, Power Broker, he goes ahead and he like taxes people, and he tells them like, hey, like if you pay me, if you work for me, you get like I'll give you powers, and whatever you make off of these powers, like whatever heist you like commit, like if you rob a bank, like 70% of that is mine. And so he basically he runs a whole business off, and it's like really like corrupt. And then eventually, like within the comics, this guy is the one that grants John Walker and Battlestar their powers.
Yes, because we do know that U.S. Agent is actually a full-blown superhuman super soldier, like even a little bit more peak than Cap himself, the original Cap. Basically, I guess Steve is more the pinnacle of what the human body could be in its perfect state, and U.S. Agent actually has superhuman strength. But Captain America, or Steve Rogers, always had the edge in the end because he has, 80, 90 years all the way back to World War II's worth of experience, and that combat experience, usually ended up giving him the edge whenever they kind of beefed a little bit. Of course, probably won't see those two Caps beefing. Instead, it'll be, Sam, Bucky, and John Walker here. But what do you guys think of the Power Broker? I guess we'll go to Bobby next. Like, we see the text message on the terrorist phone that says, like, you stole it from me, I'm gonna kill you, I'll find you. And then they're basically like, oh crap, we can't stay here long. Oh, it says, you took what was mine, I'm gonna find you and kill you from unknown. So obviously this isn't the good guys threatening to kill them. So what do you think these...
I don't know what you mean. Like, Cap might be doing that.
Yeah.
Could be Falcon. Yeah, I'm gonna kill you.
It's old man
know,
Steve,
maybe
actually.
Bucky.
Is it, unlikely, because I don't remember them stealing anything from these guys here. But what do you guys think, Bobby, about these kind of... It seems like they're... I don't know, I don't want to say like eco-terrorists, because they want to return the world to a place where... it really seems like... So, before the blip, before the snap, they didn't like the corrupt politics and whatever was going on in the world. We even actually see some of that in this episode with a little bit of questionable racism on the police's part later on. But we see them, they don't like the way things were. Then the snap happens, everyone gets replaced. Then the blip happens, and they feel like all the corrupt politicians have just come back and taken right back over. So this little group of terrorists, if you will, want to try and get the world back to where the corrupt people are gone again, right? So, I guess what are you guys' thoughts, either Bobby or Waffles here, about them playing it so fast and loose, where they're fighting not only this Power Broker, but they're also being chased by the good guys now? Like, what do you anticipate will come from this? Because originally I thought that Zemo would be more directly involved with this group, but it really seems like these kids are just kind of out on their own almost. So what are your thoughts on that?
For me, it really does seem like they realized, or how to put this, they feel like the world is in a better place after the snap, right? That because half of humanity was gone, what was left had to kind of band together and make the world what they needed it to be to keep going. Then everyone comes back, and they even say it at some point, like the GRC, right? They mentioned that it's focused more on the people who came back versus the people who were there the whole time, who struggled to make everything work. To them, to me, it seems like they're their whole thing is that they want that spirit of global cooperation to come back, and they feel like since half the population has been brought back, they're not going to see that again, and so they're trying to restore a quote unquote balance to everything, make it so that people are working together instead of working for their own ends, because everything's back to normal now. So, hey, we're good. The resume business as usual with corruption, like you said. And, some ways you could say, I guess that's admirable. It's kind of that, Thanos did nothing wrong crowd would probably be like, all right, I see that. But at the same time, the way they're going about it is obviously very sketchy. So you gotta kind of take that with a grain of salt, as it were, right? They might have good ideals, like they want people working together and being able to survive in harmony and all that, but at the same time they're using nefarious means to achieve that goal.
I could definitely see that. Waffles, what do you think? Do you think this group, do you think they're going to be one of the main antagonists throughout the entire show? Do you think they're going to end up aligning with bigger bad guys, or looking at like this, female who leads the group? What her name is? Katie? I don't know how to pronounce it, but Katie Morgenthau. Do you think she's going to end up aligning with the good guys and seeing the error of her ways, or what are your thoughts of the kind of the emotional vibe of this group? Like, it seems they're definitely committed, but do you think they'll, I guess, end up swinging more bad or good in the long run?
So I think I said this in the last episode. I'm going to kind of reverse my position I said before, where last time I said, okay, the first couple episodes, US agent is going to be the bad guy. Then it's going to switch to these Flag Smasher terrorist group thing. But I think it's actually going to be the reverse. I think that the Flag Smashers aren't going to be overall a major antagonist. I think they'll be here for maybe the next episode. I think everyone's closing in on them right now, so I think they're either bound to make a mistake or they're going to get caught. And I think that they're mostly there as a stepping stone to now get us to US Agent and Zemo maybe not working together, but being the other primary antagonist later. And I have kind of a theory about that, sort of regarding, I guess we can kind of get into this if we want, or we can wait till a little bit later, but regarding the Power Broker and regarding US Agent.
Yeah, we'll save the future speculation for the quick bit at the end here, just so we can keep things moving forward. It's basically, it cuts to back to Bucky and Sam, and they are now not riding home with John Walker anymore. They are back in the plane, and they're flying back, and there's a lot of dialogue back and forth that kind of gets continued later with the therapist as well. Just, you can tell that Bucky is just super hung up on the fact that Sam gave up the shield and didn't immediately accept the mantle. We've kind of already discussed that because it's kind of like the core part of their dynamic right now. But that leads into them having no leads, which then turns into one lead, which is Isaiah Hero. I know, Asdeek, you had a little bit of background information on him as well. So why don't you go ahead and start on this little segment and give us kind of where do you think this is going? And for the audience who may not be as familiar with the comics, who is this character?
Okay, so you have like a little cut to them, like following up on this lead, right? You kind of see like they kind of go like into the ghetto, like they're in the hood, and it just seems like it feels like Sam Wilson. He kind of just like, he kind of has like he kind of knows what's going on here, right? Because him being black, he's able to resonate with the black kids as well. And you can tell that they're definitely not in like the best of places, like in terms of like it. I wouldn't say it's like just like run down or anything like that, but you can definitely tell like it's like the hood. And so he's like, "Why are you bringing me here? Like for what purpose?" And so they enter this house, and Bucky is just like, "We need to talk to Isaiah." And the guy that answers the door, he's like, nah, like he doesn't answer no one, he doesn't want anyone in here. And Bucky proceeds to tell him who he is and gives him like a little rundown like of their past meeting. And we go and we see Isaiah Bradley. And so for the audience who doesn't really know, this guy, he was the first black Captain America. He was before Sam Wilson. He was before the Falcon even took up the mantle of Captain America. And so basically what had happened, how he became the first Black Captain America was he was like a test subject. So after they succeeded with Steve Rogers, they wanted, they would do what any government would do, right? They wanted to replicate it, but they felt like they were going to go ahead because you know how it definitely had its consequences, and there was some losses within that project. Like Steve was like 1 in a million, right?
Yeah.
And so what they did to kind of like they wanted to like ease their losses, and them being like more like it was racist, but like there was blatant racism back then, especially in the military. So what they did was they forced 300 African American soldiers as test subjects to undergo the super soldier serum tests, and only a handful of them survived. And this Isaiah Bradley was one of those people that survived. They made him fight in the war. They made him take up the mantle of Captain America, but at the time the government was also like they made sure to tell like their families of all the soldiers they picked before they even started testing them. They sent all their families letters saying this soldier is dead, like we're sorry for your loss. Like they wanted no like history of this. They wanted no one knowing about this. Like this was completely under wraps, because a lot of people would probably just say is that they didn't really want Black Captain America. They just wanted to test the super soldier serum to perfect it. And so even after this guy had fought their war for them, they locked him up. They wrapped up everything. He even says like, look at what, like I became one of you. I became a super soldier, and look what they did to me. Look what they did for me. They threw me in jail. Because right after that, they locked him up for, I think it was like about 20 years or something like that. And it's just a harsh story. And so you can tell that he doesn't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, he really doesn't give them too much information to go on, but they're definitely setting up his character. Along with the Flag Smashers, we now know that there's quite a few super soldiers running around out here in the world that just either have been on the DL or just, kind of activated more recently as the twists and turns kind of go in this direction. But we kind of get that setup, and it almost makes me question whether Sam Wilson himself is going to end up with superpowers, because by the end of the show at Battlestar and John Walker get him, Bucky Barnes already has him. I'm gonna feel bad for Sam. He's the only one left out with like no actual powers. He's just, a very, very skilled peak human being, almost kind of like Cap, but Cap even had a little bit of the extra edge from the procedure. I guess directly after that, do you guys have any commentary? Like it has this little scene that's kind of like a funny jab at over policing. Like the cops show up, they're immediately suspicious of Falcon until they figure out that he's Sam Wilson, he is the Falcon, and then they immediately arrest Bucky Barnes instead. What's your take on that, little Bobby? Like how this little reversal here, a little subversion of expectations, and how it leads us back into the therapists. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I thought the police scene was definitely a way for the production to say, hey, we're aware of social issues in 2020/2021. And like you said, it does subvert your expectations of, they give Sam a hard time, and then, one of the cops leans to the other and goes, hey man, that's Falcon, and he's like, oh, sorry, Mr. Wilson, I didn't recognize you for a second. And then they go, okay, you're good. And then they go, wait, Mr. Barnes, we've got a warrant out for your arrest, right? So they take him in. Sam goes with him because he's a nice guy. And they meet with that therapist, and things get comically awkward for Sam and Bucky as they're in there, both before they're in the room alone with the therapist, and especially when they are in the room alone with the therapist. I thought the whole bit was definitely meant to kind of lighten everything up, especially after, you mentioned there's the big scene with Isaiah. They go out, the cops are there, and you think, oh no, like this is not good. And then the whole therapist scene is meant to lighten it all up after that. She brings them both into the therapy room with her after a little tense confrontation out in the kind of waiting room area, and then she decides to try couples therapy on them, which I just thought was great. That was a really fun thing with two guys. You can tell there's not animosity necessarily between them as much as there is like they both feel like they're trying to represent Steve, right? And they both had such a great respect for Steve, but they don't see the other one kind of, understanding their point of view when it comes to Steve and the whole Captain America thing. But the whole eye lock thing, right, that turns into a staring contest, I thought was really funny. It plays off the kind of both of them trying to be macho until she goes, hey, and she snaps at him, and it's like, why are you guys having a staring contest? Like, let's take this serious for a second. We're trying to help you guys. I thought that was a great little play, them having to like lock legs and stuff, in the chairs to get close enough to each other. All of that was really kind of fun, lighthearted stuff. But at the same time, right at the very end, you do see them kind of hit on their issues with each other. They say, like, Bucky says, why did you give the shield away? What's wrong with you, man? Like Steve trusted you. He looked at you and saw, the best person for the job. That's what he thought of you. And maybe he was wrong. So what if he was wrong about me? Right? So you kind of see not only is Bucky upset with Sam, but he's maybe upset with himself because he's feeling like he doesn't live up to Steve's ideas of who he could be because of the actions that Sam is taking.
You could tell that Bucky really doesn't want to be a killer. Like that's a part that he wants, to scrub from his existence, as we could see from episode 1, his remorse with his neighbor, the Asian son that he killed on that one mission, and now all these past regrets that he wants to make sure that Cap was right about him, as well as, right about Sam as well. Like, he feels like they're kind of directly tied to each other, right? Whereas, in truth, it's probably a very independent situation. But I guess that kind of cycles back around to the fact that they just wanted to throw some more comedy in this scene. I don't know, Waffles or Asdeek, if there's anything you wanted to add about the therapy session, feel free to chime in now. But I thought it was also important to note that the one who actually bails Bucky out, of course, is John Walker. So if you want to segue as well into, I guess, their final encounter for this video, you can also kind of start to touch on that. But what are your thoughts on the therapy and then the John Walker bailout, Waffles?
So I think Little Bobby hit basically everything I would have said with the therapy session. I think it was pretty funny. I thought there was some pretty palpable tension there. So that was interesting to see them kind of play on that, make some of the kind of jokes that I'm sure some of the fandom has made by now. But I would say that's basically everything I would say about the therapy session. But I think having the US agent, again, bail him out, I don't know if he's trying to use it as leverage or like trying to do favors in the kind of nice guy way where it's like, I'm being a nice guy because I expect something in return. And so I don't know. We'll see how it is. I think there was an interesting little bit in their interaction where you could see John Walker actually getting frustrated. And it seems like maybe he was trying to hide that for a while. But at the same time, like Bucky and Sam have been like kind of a little bit indignant towards him as well. So it's kind of like everyone's in the wrong at this point. And so I almost understand where he's coming from, but I feel like that's going to play a big role. Maybe he has a little bit of anger issues. I don't know yet. But I think maybe that could be bubbling under the surface.
Yeah, you kind of actually hear him be like, fine, if you're not going to team up with us, then stay out of my way. Like, no direct threats, but just kind of like that macho territorial beef where I'm kind of sure if they ended up in the same place at the same time again, they'd probably still end up helping each other. But it doesn't seem like... Well, I mean, what's your take on it, Asdeek? It seems like Sam Wilson and Bucky kind of want to be free of the direct government oversight, and they kind of see, new Cap, John Walker, as being more on a leash. I mean, what do you make of this tension between them? Do you think that they're going to end up squaring up against each other more in terms of combative, or do you think they're going to end up teaming up more towards the end of the series here?
Oh yeah, I definitely think they're gonna eventually throw hands here, because you basically have like, well, not necessarily scuffed, but you have like your downgraded version of Cap and Bucky right here, and then you have Falcon, who is ultimately going to take on the role of Captain America, I feel like, and then the actual Bucky. And so I feel like you're going to see the parallels between the two of them. You're going to see like the Sam gonna go ahead and rise up and take the shield and be like, no, like, I'm Captain America. And then I think that alone is gonna cause tension, where he ultimately is like, I need the shield back. Like, I was the one that was chosen, and I don't think John Walker is gonna take too kindly to that at all. So I think this is definitely setting the stage for something much bigger here.
I am right there with you too. It's gonna be like kind of almost a three-way conflict where hopefully I expect the good guys to not beef but so much, and then it's hard to tell though, because we saw how clever Zemo was in Civil War. Like, he basically set the good guys up to fight each other. So maybe there's still kind of a lot of that theme that they're playing off of here, where the good guys are still kind of at ends sometimes, end up fighting. So it'll be very interesting to see where they take that. Really from there, I mean, there's not too much else to go on with their dialogue. You can tell that they're kind of tracking this group of terrorists here, but they don't really have too much more information. We fast forward to an airport where they're kind of loading up what I would assume to be all the stuff they stole from the power broker and just trying to escape before the power broker gets here. But again, we don't see too much. Like, it's just a bunch of PMCs. One of the terrorists tries to stop them and he gets dusted really quickly, and the plane gets away. You guys have any thoughts on this little interaction right here? I mean, again, it's quite straightforward, but more importantly, I guess, where do you think this is all heading? Like, I guess, like you said, do you think that this power broker is going to catch up with these people and squash their group and reveal himself to be the true enemy, team up with Zemo? Do you think that these super soldiers are just going to be more and more prevalent? As in, like, do you think somehow there'll be like a Batman and Joker moment where John Walker and then Sam Wilson and Bucky are in the same place at the same time again, and they like fall in a vat of chemicals or something? Like, do you think, like, how do you think they're going to go about getting their superpowers? Do you think he's more going to be on the mission and John Walker's going to see the super soldier serum and like pocket it? Like, ultimately, like, I guess, because we don't know the future. What are you guys' thoughts on where this is kind of heading here? I guess we could start with Azdeek on this one.
Well, so like how you said it is definitely very straightforward. I'm definitely interested to see the route they take, because once again, like, power broker is mentioned right here, and then so they're like, you can definitely tell that I feel like power broker is going to have a big part in this, and especially because I kind of feel like I want to say that he's going to be like one of the main bad guys here, because even in the comics, like, he gets pushed into a corner, and so he's just like, okay, well, screw this. Like, I'm just gonna go. I'm going to undergo the operation myself. I'm gonna go ahead and beef myself up, and he becomes like a super powered freak too. So, like, literally like a freak. Like, he becomes like so like massive, and so because he undergoes it like so desperately, and it just things just, how things just tend to go wrong with stuff like that. And so I'm curious to see if they're going to go in that direction, if they're going to open up some more doors here. But I have to see power broker come into play here now.
Yeah, I'm really kind of intrigued, because you don't actually see power broker himself. You just see, like, on screen right here I'm showing, it's just kind of like an agent of his, right? Like, someone that's there on his behalf chasing down the plane with a bunch of mercenaries. And ultimately, you see them get away. And, I mean, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, little Bobby, or if you just wanted to go straight into the next scene where they're kind of just walking down the street, talking about their next move, and they discuss going and seeing Mr. Zemo. And we kind of get a cut into the final scene here where basically it seems like Zemo is still just chilling in solitary confinement in some foreign prison or something like that. I would assume this would be like a German prison, right? I'm not immediately familiar with this geography right here, this traffic circle with the statue. So, if any of y'all want to chime in,
I would take it from the music. It's probably German. So with Zemo coming in, I think there's a lot of interesting ways that it could go, because remember that Zemo, his whole thing was, you know, like you said earlier, was turning the heroes against each other to get them to destroy each other. But it was because he wanted to destroy superpowered individuals because what they did to his family, right? When you consider that, you know, it could be that Zemo really does become an ally because he's seeing, you know, the power broker create more superpowered individuals, and he doesn't want that, right? It could be that they get him out and he does decide to align with the power broker because then he sees maybe the way to actually directly affect the people who did take his family, right? The Avengers that he's going to be face to face with probably the next episode. So there's a couple ways it could go, and I thought it was interesting that, yeah, we you know, we see after all this time, Zemo is just kind of hanging out in solitary in Europe somewhere. But the possibilities for what he could bring to the story, I think are very, very interesting because we don't know how he was affected by the blip yet, right? If he was taken out of existence or if he just sat there the whole time. So I think there's a lot of ways that it could play out.
Yeah, I'm definitely kind of like hanging on by the seat of my pants here because they're setting up a bunch of stuff, but it's not, like we said before, it's not really like mind warpy bendy type stuff. It's just kind of like, oh, here's this stinger, now wait and see what happens. And it's just like, you remember this guy, you remember this Easter egg, and here all the jigsaw pieces starting to fall into place. But I guess we got 4 more episodes. I guess we're almost halfway done. But Waffles, you mentioned having some kind of theories earlier about where the series might go when we saved it for later to just stay on track. So feel free to spill your guts here and now. Like, where do you think this is all going to play out? How do you think Zemo's going to factor in? Do you think he's going to align with the power broker, with the terrorists, with, you know, resurrecting some faction of Hydra? Like, how do you see this going here?
All right, so I have 2 major thoughts. I'm going to start with the first plot stuff because I think that's really interesting to think about. So basically, here's what I see going on now that we have the power broker involved. The flag smashers are running away. They get stopped by, let's say US Agent, Battlestar, maybe even Bucky and Falcon, but we're going to make sure that those 2 are there. I think because they've had to fight these super soldiers, US Agent and Battlestar, but mostly US Agent here, has seen that he needs superpowers. He's just getting his butt kicked. He's having a hard time. I think the same thing almost goes for Falcon and Bucky, but I think that's to a lesser extent. But mostly here, I think that there's kind of an insecurity maybe eating at him with the pressure of trying to be Captain America, trying to live up to all these expectations, that I think if there's some power serums there in those boxes that are supposed to be medicine, that I think he's gonna pocket some of those and maybe take it kind of like a steroid or something like that. I don't know, maybe Battlestar does that too. He also gets some superpowers. We see that build up. But at the same time, I think the way Zemo's going to play in here is that he's going to be pitting Falcon and Winter Soldier against US Agent a little bit more. I think that he's going to kind of spur on their desire to actually stop him, while at the same time US Agent is becoming a worse person because he's a bit of a cocky guy, and we know that the super soldier serum amplifies what's already there. So if he's got those anger issues we saw, if he's also just overly cocky and feels like he's entitled to this role, that I think that just becomes really bad later on, and that ends up turning him into one of the primary antagonists. That's kind of the major ideas with the plot that I was thinking about. But the other thing that occurred to me while you guys were talking was that, like, right now this is supposed to be going on at the same time as like WandaVision. If power brokers involved and we start to see more and more people popping up with superpowers, especially those kind of people that are using them in not the best ways, I think that almost lends more argument to, I don't even remember his name, Captain Jerkface, the guy that got arrested at the end of WandaVision. It leads some more credence to his argument that superpowered people are bad, and could lead us even more into the whole idea of mutants and sentinels later. So those are just thoughts overall, but that's what's going on in my brain.
I mean, I could see quite a few of those things happening. It's just I don't ultimately know. I'm still not decided on whether John Walker is gonna willingly like kind of crack and give up the title to Sam Wilson? Because we know ultimately we've seen promo art of Sam Wilson with the Captain America, costume, right? So is John Walker gonna willingly give it up because he's gonna crack under the pressure and just be like, man, this really just isn't for me, and
Yeah, I think if he doesn't steal it, then Power Broker is gonna be like
He's like, "Shake my
incentivizing it.
hand." Yep.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Like, check out all the goods I got under my trench
It's
coat.
very interesting how they've done their best to set up John Walker as coming across as like, a good guy. Maybe sometimes he'll cut corners, shoot someone in the neck, but ultimately he's a good guy. He tries really hard, but there still might be some, a darker, more sinister side that they have yet to show off to make his
Well, it could even be him just cutting a corner there and taking them easy
way out super soldier serum. Don't put in the work in the gym, Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, what do you think, Azdeek, about the re-reveal of Baron Zemo in prison and the visit that they're going to pay? Like, what do you think they're gonna ask him? Like, how do you think he's gonna break out? Because we've seen him with, his iconic mask in the teasers. Yeah. So, what do you think is the next kind of natural step in the progression of the series here?
Honestly, like, my mind is in shambles right now because after the first episode and we talked about what we thought was going to happen, like, everything is completely changed. Like, I remember initially I thought that I want to see Bucky and Sam kind of like fight for the mantle, but it's clear to me now that Bucky wants Sam to take the mantle, right? And I initially thought that Zemo was going to be like just the brain behind everything, but it seems like he really didn't have a way to do that. And like Bobby said, like, we don't know like if he was blipped or what he was doing during all this time maybe he wasn't blipped in that entire 5 years. He was just planning, and maybe he does have some like big thing planning out of this. I kind of like thought like he's going to be like, okay, well, Bucky and Sam are going to approach him, and he's going to be like, okay, well, I'll scratch your guys' back if you guys scratch mine, and that somehow leads to his escape. I'm not too sure, but it's just crazy because now we have like a whole lot of factors. Like, we have the Flag Smashers, we have Zemo, we have Power Broker, who can definitely play a massive part, not just in the show, but in the Marvel like universe just as a whole, because he does a lot. Like, he's connected to Falcon getting his powers. He's connected to like a bunch of other like side characters. Just a lot of like goons kind of like just getting like saying like, hey, like I need this upgrade. And then Power Brokers are, all right, come to me. I got you guys. Like, I'm going to go ahead and this is my business. This is what I do. And, I definitely see a lot of corruption going on there. I feel like I kind of want to see a buildup of them taking Power Broker down before it even like gets like to that point where it's just so massive like that. But you have the inclusion of Zemo, and I just don't know where to place him at this point in time. Like, I'm very curious to know like where you guys would place him. Like, how much of a villain is he actually going to be in this? Or if he's just going to, pull another Civil War where he just doesn't pull any punches at all, and he's just like, let me just set up everything in the shadows.
Based off the fact that he gets his mask, I have to believe he's going to be more involved as like a bad guy than compared to what he was in Civil War specifically. Like, I don't know, but he seems to be that kind of villain, right? Who just kind of does things behind the scenes. He doesn't seem like, someone that would lead the charge like Thanos on the front lines, right? So
yeah,
maybe he ends up getting superpowers too. Like, it seems like this is a great way, between this and like the Hex and WandaVision and Monica Rambeau, like, it seems like it might be how they start getting mutants into the MCU, right? Not just, they show up one day and here they all are, but like there's events like the Hex going on that are altering people's DNA. There's other events like, this going on in Falcon Winter Soldier. People are getting super soldier serum left and right. Maybe that, a culmination of all those events leads to, the enhanced or the actual mutants in the MCU. But yeah, Bobby, what are your closing thoughts on the enhanced individuals in the show? Wait, did I already hit you? Who did I not hit yet? Did I hit everybody? Did I not hit
No, it was
Bobby?
Bobby.
Okay, I was about to say. So yeah, what are your thoughts on just that final reveal of Zemo, and how do you think this is going to naturally play out moving forwards between the terrorists, the John Walker U.S. agent, the Falcon and Bucky, like all these different factions? Like, where do you see it all heading? Like,
I think we really do still have to wait and see when it comes to all of this. Just because, like you said, there's definitely a bigger role for Zemo to play. He's not going to be small time. We're going to see him in his mask. We know that. And with him in the mask, it kind of shows that he's almost assuredly going to be a big bad. Realistically, just basics of storytelling, and especially storytelling in the MCU, all of these factions are going to come together to be something that Sam and Bucky have to overcome, right? Not only the terrorist group, but Zemo and U.S. agent / Captain America 2 Electric Boogaloo,
there's
right?
so many different factions. It's hard to keep track of them all in my head this late at night now.
Yeah,
right. So I mean, yeah, we if you guys don't know, we're staying up till 3 a.m. Pacific to record this for you guys. So, but these are definitely all going to be challenges that Sam and Bucky have to overcome. You know, the external, right, of Zemo, as well as the terrorist group, and what's the guy his
Battlestar? You're talking about John Walker's sidekick?
Oh,
or?
no, the guy who's doing all the
power
experiments.
broker.
The power broker, right? So yeah, the power broker, as well as the terrorist group, you know, because they're already kind of in cahoots with each other, even though he's trying to hunt them down right now.
They have a relationship.
Plus Zemo's going to be out there once they get him to help them. He's going to escape. We can all see this coming. But then the internal of the people who are supposed to be helping them, right? Captain America and his buddy, his Bucky, as you put it. You know, they're going to circle around and definitely be a challenge for Sam and Bucky to overcome too. I predict by the end of episode 4, we're going to see all of them, you know, kind of aimed towards Sam and Bucky, with the last 2 episodes being, you know, the whole clash of all the factions against our heroes, right? As Stan Lee himself would put it.
That is, I mean, honestly, I don't even know what I myself would predict. I just know that Zemo is definitely getting some time on the floor. The power broker, this whole situation is coming out of left field for me. You know, I was just kind of expecting it to be a more straightforward Falcon and Winter Soldier or Bucky versus Zemo. But now we're getting the U.S. agent angle. We're getting, like you said, the power broker, the flag smashers, Zemo in prison. And like everyone could be beefing with anybody at this point. Half the people we know in the comics end up with powers, but don't have them at this point in the MCU. So I think that even though, again, for like the 3rd time now, the show is presented in a very linear fashion, there are going to be some pretty big things that happen here. I don't know, anyone else have any kind of closing thoughts? Because there was no real stinger after this. I mean, I'm sure there's some significance to the imagery that scrolls by, kind of like how in WandaVision every episode ended with it panning into Vision's eye. But outside of that, I don't think there's too much else that happened in this episode. I think we're just going to be on the seat of our pants waiting until next Friday. What do you guys think?
I'm hurt that they destroyed Red Wing, bro.
That is true. You know, Red Wing is not an actual bird in the show like he is in the comics, and one of those superhumans just straight up snapped it over their knee.
Yeah,
He's a bird to me, man. He's a bird to me.
Dude, he's like a vampire bird in the
rest
comics.
in pieces.
Like, come on, bro.
Any little piece of Stark tech, It's sad when it breaks, because, you know, it's like seeing an old car, you know, like once a certain amount of them get destroyed or crashed, then, you know, there's just like none of them left anymore. So it's the same with Stark Tech, man. Tony is gone. I don't think the MCU is going to do anything like the comics and be bringing people back from the dead. Like, it sounds like most of the directors, like, we have people be like, oh, yeah, we're not going to bring back Yondu because that would undo the sacrifices that he made, right? Like, it seems like they're pretty committed to the deaths in the movies, comparatively speaking to the comics. And that's not to say that it'll never happen. Like, obviously, Gamora came back, and I don't know, maybe there's room for, like, Black Widow or a couple other characters to maybe come back, Loki, but... You know, ultimately, I think for the big characters, they want the meaningful deaths to stay meaningful. So, all of this.
But remember, this is Marvel, so the official rule is that no one is ever dead forever except for Uncle Ben.
Yes. And something else, very interesting closing thought that I just wanted to bring up. Like, this show has been presented in a situation that... It makes it seem like Captain America is dead too, but he's still alive and old somewhere, right? Like, why don't they pay him a visit? Do you think he's gonna have a cameo in the show at all? Like, what is the situation with that? Do you think, like, you know, Bucky could be like, oh, I'm so mad at you, Sam, for not taking the shield. Cap, he wanted you to have it. Well, why don't they just go ask Cap and explain to him what happened and be like, I wasn't ready for it yet. Like, you know, he's not dead yet, is he? Like, what's the deal?
Don't give me hope. No more surprise cameos.
I really hope that he goes in there.
lesson.
I hope he makes an appearance. That would be everything.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, it would be great to see Chris Evans, but I don't even think Disney could keep that under wraps. I think someone would have been like, Chris Evans, come back, just don't tell anybody, and it would have gotten out already.
Yeah, even if he was just in his old man cameo for like a couple of scenes, I think that would be kind of a great thing. But
Oh yeah, for sure. But I don't want to hope for it yet because I feel like we don't really have many hints for it. I think maybe in the movies, maybe we'll see something like that. But
well, just like the TV show itself, all good things must come to an end, and I think that has about wrapped us up for our discussion about, you know, the events, all of our feelings, where we think things are going, and, you know, the rough estimate of everything that happened in the show. We don't want to ruin everything for y'all, so it's still a reason to go back and watch it. I myself highly recommend it, but of course we will be doing this again every week for the new episodes that come out, and in the foreseeable future for stuff like Loki and the movies and previews, trailers, and stuff like that as well. I guess any of y'all, Azdeek, Little Bobby, Waffles, are gonna say goodbye real quick, and we can wrap this bad boy up. And any final thoughts?
Later, guys.
Yep.
Goodbye, everybody.
goodbye.
All right, y'all. We were going to get this up as soon as we possibly can, but if you did enjoy it, consider liking and subscribing if you're new here as well, hitting the notification bell so we can not only spread the videos out to a wider audience, but so that we can keep in tabs with you and see you guys on the next upload. All right. Well, that's it for me. It's like 5 in the morning, or 6 in the morning. I'm going to take a break. Peace out, everybody.